The G20 meeting in Mexico has wound up, with world economic leaders agreeing on efforts to contain the Eurozone crisis. Julia Gillard is claiming a win on Australia's lobbying to get more funding for the International Monetary Fund, and she's been buoyed by praise for Australia's economy. But back in Australia, the summit has barely registered, with Parliament dominated by the impending carbon tax. Melissa Clark reports from Canberra.
It's a wrap, and the leaders of the world's largest economies have come up with the Los Cabos Jobs and Growth Action Plan.
We reached compromises for various things to confront decisively the situation in the Eurozone, to guarantee the world's financial stability, to strengthen the demand for growth as well as job creation.
That means working towards a Eurozone deposit insurance scheme, recapitalising banks and more integrated banking regulation.
This is a significant development which will help break the negative feedback loop between the stressed banks and governments with significant debt burdens.
There's plenty of positive sentiment, but also caution.
None of them are going to be a silver bullet that solves this thing entirely over the next week or 2 weeks or 2 months.
One concrete outcome has been G20 countries pledging $450 billion for the IMF to help developing countries cope with the downturn. And Julia Gillard is claiming victory.
This is an important outcome which Australia has been advocating strongly for over the last 9 months.
Actually, she's pretty chuffed all round, talking up Australia's economic strength to other world leaders.
Their common response is to sigh with a certain degree of wistful envy because most of them are facing situations where they are seeing no growth or very low growth. They are facing very high and persistent unemployment.
No such admiration for the Australian government's efforts back home in Canberra. Rather than wistful envy, it's more like spitting invective as the government and the opposition battle to get their messages across ahead of the start of the carbon tax. It's all familiar.
Now I'm just trying to think how much carbon tax that drill's going to use, mate.
Tony Abbott is dropping into local businesses, pressing his message.
What we can be sure of is that the bills will go up.
And there are familiar lines from the government too, in question time today.
Because what we have here is not a leader of the opposition, we have a snake oil salesman who is slithering around the country, peddling his falsehoods.
And yesterday...
What we know is he's just like that old snake oil salesman.
And the day before.
That the leader of the opposition is a snake oil salesman.
And there'll be little respite between now and July 1. Melissa Clark, Lateline.